It's My Right Stuff with your host, Grammy Award-winning record producer and inventor, Toby Wright. My Right Stuff is brought to you by Tones, a natural sleep and sound healing portal available globally at www.tones.com. That's www.taumhoms.com. And I'm your announcer, Grinnin' Barrett. Here's Toby.
Hey, and welcome back to My Right Stuff, which is a film, TV, sports, and adventure lifestyle podcast. And our guests come from all walks of life, and not just in the music sector. I'm your host, Lord Toby Wright, and my co-host is Mr. Gareth Dyton, a.k.a. DJ Chunky, from Chunky's Choice Cuts all the way from Wales. Well, hey, Gareth, how are you today?
I'm very well. I'm actually enjoying a bit of sunshine for a change, which is nice.
Really? Wow, that is different for you guys, isn't it?
Very, very different. Yeah, we've had kind of like 3 weeks solid of rain, and we had 2 days of sunshine last week, and then storms for the weekend, and now it's actually beautifully sunny today. So I'm actually enjoying those rays on my face.
Right on. Well, it might be time to get out there in your little hammock and, get a little sunshine.
Well, fingers crossed, Tobes. Fingers crossed, my friend.
Well, on today's podcast, we have Sennheiser, a very special guest with a couple of employees. And but first, I want to thank our sponsor, Tomes, which is a natural sleep and sound healing portal, helping people globally to get to sleep faster and stay asleep longer through www.tomes.com. That's www.taumhoms.com.
Hey Toby, but most of all, a big thank you to all who stream, download, watch and support My Right Stuff. Please keep spreading the word and tuning in, and please be sure to click on our show notes below, which by the way includes my show, Chunky's Choice Cuts, which goes out live on Jack's Radio and is also syndicated through Radio Free Sealand. Please follow our link tree for a full list of channels we're streaming on, as well as our sites and social media platforms. Also, if you are able, please follow our support link to donate to The Right Stuff. Every single dollar helps us to support the crew who make all of this beautiful thing possible. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as the podcast channel of your choice so you never miss a single episode or news about forthcoming episodes. Thank you, lovely people.
That's excellent. Thank you, Gareth. Well, today our guest is a very, how do I say it? They're just steeped in history of an amazing microphone company, right? That's, been around since, 1945 or something, right?
Wow.
So without further ado, I think we should introduce a couple of our guests and have them actually introduce themselves and tell us who you are and what you do for Sennheiser. Hi, how are you guys?
Thanks for having us on the show. Greg, would you mind if I introduce myself first here?
Absolutely.
I don't want to steal any thunder, but
No, go for it.
But B is before S if we're going by last name. So that's how we'll do it.
Save the best for last. That's okay.
Oh, it's going to be that kind of podcast. Just be ready for it. There's a little bit of banter.
I think so. The actual gloves are off already, lads.
If you're from the Northeast in the U.S., this is kind of how you show love. It's very normal.
Yeah. It's the same in Wales,
right?
Well, my name is Robb Blumenreder. I've been with Sennheiser 18 years. My current task with the company is working in the customer and market insights area for our professional audio business unit. And that basically means that my responsibility is to keep the finger on the pulse of both our resellers and our end users, making sure that we're doing all the right things or the right stuff. If you don't mind,
nice.
I can
like
borrow
it.
from that.
Just a little bit.
Little borrowed, little blue.
Yeah.
Again, been with the company 18 years. I've held a variety of different positions, both locally, regionally, and globally. And I am very pleased and happy to be on the show today. And I just want to thank you all for inviting us on to talk about a little bit of Sennheiser history and some of our new products.
You're more than welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yep. And my name is Greg Simon. I am part of the technical applications engineering team. Basically, I'm in charge of doing all of our training here in North America, any sort of product details or technical, also the system design, especially for RF systems. We take care of that as well on my team.
Excellent. All right.
Awesome.
Well, as we know,
Toby,
Sennheiser has tons of pro audio products, including microphones and headphones and wireless systems and monitoring, live sound recording, all that stuff. And your products are just a head above the competition, I think. And pretty much history proves this. Is there a formulaic reason behind the quality difference between Sennheiser and your competition, you guys think?
Greg, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. And I think a big part of it is because of the family history, right? So, I mean, it was started, by Professor Sennheiser, and he was an engineer, right? And then it really was, how do I engineer the best possible equipment? And then I think later it was, okay, if I want to engineer more of this equipment, we have to sell it in order to, make some revenue so we can actually produce more. But they were engineers first, and they still are, right? It's still owned by the brothers who are his grandkids, and they're engineers, right?
Okay.
They want to design the best possible stuff. Yeah. And once they do that, then it's, okay, we have to sell some of this in order so we can go and design some more stuff. So it's engineering first, and they just want to get the best possible sound. It's that passion for, high quality and best possible sound.
And as you know, when Greg's saying it's a family-run business, one of the really interesting quotes that I remember hearing from Professor Sennheiser was that basically they're saying they play the long game. They think in generations. They think in decades. Okay. It's not something that's, hey, we need to get out this product right now, cut corners, do this thing, get this out. That's not the way the family operates.
And it's always...
Well, that makes good business sense, doesn't it, really?
It's always been quality first, right? They want to make the best possible quality. And, they're never really thinking about, hey, can we make something cheaper so we can sell more of it or make more money? They just want to make the best possible product. And that's why people like myself and Robb are so passionate about working here, because we have the best product. So it's really exciting.
Yeah. Gotcha. I like it.
Could you please tell our listeners the difference between condenser and dynamic mics, and what are the most practical applications for each of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So really the difference between is a design difference between them, right? So a dynamic microphone has a diaphragm that as the sound waves hit that diaphragm, it physically vibrates, and that creates an electronic current, right? A condenser microphone actually has an electrical current that gets put up into the microphone, and then that diaphragm kind of floats on that electrical current. And then as the sound waves hit it, it changes the electrical current there. So that means that there are better cases for a dynamic mic, and there are better cases for a condenser microphone. So the condenser microphone will be more sensitive than a dynamic mic. And so depending on your situation, one may be better than another. So if you have a really loud source, or if you're on a big stage, very aggressive singer, a dynamic mic will really be able to handle that. And if you have something very delicate, a condenser mic will really be able to achieve all of the detail that you get in there. So again, depending on the situation, one may be better than another. There's never going to be this microphone is always better in every situation.
Well, and if we can parlay a little bit off that, I think a lot of people working from home are kind of finding that out, because there's so many different microphones that you can purchase to enhance, whether it's a Zoom meeting or a podcast or what have you. And Greg and I kind of have this joke that, as we work for Sennheiser, people that work for Sennheiser are lustful for gear. So we do have a accommodation program for our employees. So you're always building out your mic collection. And whether it's mics from Sennheiser or Neumann or studio monitors, and Greg and I joke that, the better the equipment I buy, the worse everything starts to sound. And, it's one of those things that, until you get a really good pair of studio monitors or a really good pair of headphones or a really good microphone, you don't actually realize that mix sounds this way. And a lot of that goes with the vocal microphones too. If you're in a room like I'm in right now, this is a home office. It's not a studio. So I'm using a condenser microphone, but that's going to be much more sensitive. It's going to pick up room reflections. It's going to pick up my chair moving, a little bit of this. Sure. I had to shut the air conditioning off, so it's getting hot in here already. those kinds of things, I could mitigate a ton of that by doing one thing: switching from a condenser to a dynamic microphone and putting it right here. And then it's much less sensitive. It picks up directionally your voice, and that makes your life a whole lot easier. So depending on application, you might want to move from a condenser to a
And it's
dynamic.
always that double-edged sword, right? If you get something that gives you more detail, those details better be really good if you want to hear them.
That's
right.
Yeah,
That's right.
Right. Exactly.
So, a fuzzy picture always looks
Some of the
okay.
history. Say again?
I said a fuzzy picture always looks okay if you can't really see the details, right? But once you get into those fine details, if they don't look so good, you'll notice.
Monet.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. So some of the history that your company's founded in 1945 by Dr. Fritz Sennheiser, who made the MD82, which was your first shotgun mic, used on film sets and television sets, right? And then went on to develop the 421 in 1960, which is still in production today, right? And there's one there. Look at that. And then in 1968, he went on and had the HD 414, the world's first open-backed headphones, and which remain the best-selling full-size headphone, right? And then the 441 came in 1971, and it's gone on to become another classic microphone. And then in 1974, we had the MKE 2002 spatial stereo headphones, right? The stereo microphone. Let me get this correct. It was it's a stereo
Binaural
microphone built in as a binaural and built into a head, right? So this became a lot of like cool 3D sound and all that kind of stuff. Comes from all of that. And at the end of the 1970s was the Microport, which was pretty much one of the first wireless systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was just wondering what was your first wireless technology? Was it this Microport system?
Microport, I think that was the first commercial. There's and this is always kind of debated as to who actually had the first wireless microphone to hit the market.
Right.
But Microport was really one of the first more commercially viable products, using crystal tuning and things of that nature.
Right. Okay.
But Toby, one of the interesting things, not necessarily wireless related, but a lot of those microphones that you just listed off have either been modified and updated to stick with the times, or they're still in production. So, an MD421 came out in 1960. Yeah, there's been a couple editions of it, but that form factor, that mic is still around. The 441 still around. And by the way, textbook supercardioid mic, one of the best sounding dynamic microphones you could ever. And I mean, it's the coolest looking dynamic mic you could ever buy.
For sure.
It's a sign of quality, though, isn't it, really? 50 years later, you're still actually producing it. Sorry, 60 years later, you're actually still making it. It's a sign of quality there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that, that fits the Sennheiser, we think in generations aspect. When you buy something from Sennheiser, we're trying really hard to not have you buy something that's throwaway. We're trying to have you buy something. It's an investment. You're going to use it. It becomes part of your mic locker. And then when your grandkid picks it up, they go, oh, this is like super vintage.
And the one thing to remember about, and this goes back to Sennheiser's history and really the way that they do stuff, is the first wireless system that they actually presented was actually in the late 50s. And it was done, I believe, at the whatever the precursor to the ISE show was there in the late 50s. And it was the first wireless microphone that was designed for professional applications, right? They were not looking to just make a wireless, hey, how do we make this wireless? But it was, how do we make this wireless and it be like top best quality that you can get, right? So just so you guys know, the original wireless microphone patents were actually filed before any of the wireless microphone companies that exist today existed. I want to say it was actually AT&T that filed that patent, or the precursor to AT&T in 1917, I believe. And it wasn't until 40, 50 years later that actual wireless microphones were being available commercially. So Sennheiser did the first high-end professional use wireless mic, which was shown in the late 1950s. And then once we got to the 70s, we started actually commercially producing them for, masses.
Wow. Nice. Gotcha. Okay. Awesome. Good to know.
to actually kind of follow on from that, do you see any limits for the use of actually wireless like sort of technology?
Limits.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, that's a difficult question.
It's actually not a difficult question. It's just a really, really big question because there's a lot to unpack with that.
Yeah.
And for those of us that have been kind of living through what's been referred to as digital dividend sales, or repacking of spectrum or things of that nature, you've kind of lived that, whether you're in the UK or the US or throughout Europe, which is basically taking analog over the air transmission and saying, okay, we're going away from analog, we're moving into digital. Everybody's really excited about that because digital offers so many more opportunities, but that effectively makes our bandwidth that we get to play in as non-licensed users substantially smaller. Mm-hmm. So, Greg, I think you probably have a little more information on
the
this
wireless
as
spectrum
well.
In general for wireless mics is a great spectrum. This is this UHF spectrum that we use, and specifically the 470 to 608 megahertz, which is what's available now in North America for use. It's a great spectrum, and the problem that we're now running into is it's not great for just wireless microphones, but it's great for lots of wireless technologies. And there are other companies that are far bigger than any audio or video company that exists that is, hey, we want to make devices in this spectrum, and we have lots of money, and so we're going to buy it, right? And these are the cellular companies that are buying up this spectrum. If you look at here in the US, oh, hey, they sold all the spectrum. Who bought it? Almost all of it was purchased by AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, right? They bought almost all of it. They have the deepest pockets. And they're using it for 5G technology, for 4G technology, for future technologies that they're planning on releasing, and that's really where the spectrum is going. So there's still a lot of spectrum left, and it's really the best possible place for wireless microphones, mostly because of the regulations and because of the actual frequency that it's in. The spectrum that's available kind of gives you that Goldilocks of really good propagation without having tons of power. It also gives you kind of inexpensive but reliable transmission that you can use. So it really gives you a lot of opportunities. It's really that Goldilocks spectrum where we can really get good antenna sizes, good distance, and be able to use current battery technologies and not get 10 minutes of battery life. You need to have hours and hours of battery life in order to put on a long show or do anything in the live sound world these days.
All right. Okay.
A quick sort of follow-on question from that. Therefore, then, how do you guarantee privacy and security?
So there's a few different ways of doing that, right? Now that we are really moving into digital wireless, all of the codecs that are being used are proprietary. So you can't just you can't just tune in with any device to those codecs, right? So everything is kind of locked in, and you have to have that specific codec. Additionally, when you go up to some of the higher end systems, they do start adding things like encryption and security for that particular purpose. So, our high-end digital 6000 system has AES 256 encryption, which is, industry standard these days. But again, you can't just tune into, so even if you get, one of our lesser expensive systems that doesn't have encryption, you can't just tune in because it's a proprietary codec that you have to have.
Awesome.
And interestingly, there are other technologies that are kind of like long in the tooth, but people still use them exactly for that reason. So if you were to go into a courthouse or something like that, and they have an assistive listening system, it may very well be infrared because you have to be inside of that physical space in order to receive that signal. So there's a lot of different ways to transmit wirelessly. And as Greg said, if you're doing it with digital, we kind of got you covered, but for some applications, they're still using light transmission with infrared.
Interesting.
Awesome. Thank you very much for explaining.
That's pretty cool. So I'm using your brand new Evolution wireless digital microphone. With which capsule do I have
835
again?
835.
Oh yeah, the 835. Okay. And truthfully, it sounds a little heavy in the upper mid range for my particular voice right now. And I'm wondering, is there, so it comes with a bunch of different capsules, right? And so, can you explain the differences between the capsules and why would you do this?
Well, so we have a whole line of different capsules that will work with that mic. Actually, all of our modern capsules will work with the Evolution Wireless Digital. It's actually the first time we've done that in a system at this price point. And the whole point is that everyone's voice sounds different, right? So if there was one microphone that sounded best on everybody, we would just make that one microphone and that would be it. So, right. But everybody's voice sounds different, and every microphone has a different pickup and response pattern, and they all sound different. So this particular one may not be the best match for you, but we have about 20 others that all sound different that may be, better in different ways. So we have our 900 series that has thinner diaphragms, better frequency response. We have condensers. In our 9000 series, also we have, our 65 series with the 965 and 865. And then we also have our sister company Neumann, which has a couple of capsules as well. And those are really high end. Obviously, Neumann has been, regarded as a top quality manufacturer for many, many years. And we have some Neumann capsules available as well, which will work also with that Evolution Wireless Digital.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
And Toby, you've mixed, I think, a couple times.
Yeah,
right?
I've had a couple of faders in my hand once or twice.
So if the five of us were in a band, right, and all of a sudden we're not doing just vocal, you're not doing just dialogue, and all of a sudden you have low frequency energy that's filling from the bass guitar or synths or guitars or anything like that. That little boost in that upper frequency, if you're not a world-renowned sound engineer, that actually is going to lift your vocal and make it a little more intelligible. So right out of the box, someone who doesn't have the experience or expertise can really leverage that 835 microphone. And that is something that you would see if you were going to do like a blind taste test. If you're going to A/B the Sennheiser 835 versus the competition, you're always going to hear with the 835, like it sounds a little bit brighter. It sounds a little more clear. This other one sounds like it's got kind of like a sock on it. And that's purposely done.
Because think about it.
I think that's a really good point too. That this might sound a little bit top endy to me in my headphones right now, and it could be the headphones, right? It could be, just because I have dialogue and I have no music around me, and so it's a good point. I think that why don't I try this with my band and see what I sound like, right? And do I punch over the band, and does my vocal still sound very powerful?
It's definitely designed,
and that's what I want out of a microphone, right?
Yeah, so it's definitely designed to cut through the mix. That's kind of the whole point.
Gotcha. Okay. So now, of all the capsules that I can get designed to cut through the mix, or are there some that are designed to kind of sit in the mix a little bit?
Well, we have all different capsules, right? So they're all. Yeah, we do everything from some of these 9000 series condensers, which are super flat, and then we also have other capsules that will give you even maybe more top end or more detail or maybe less as well, just to kind of again, like if your voice is not bright, then this will bring you kind of to where you want to be. If your voice maybe is a little bright, then you don't want extra, right? So every capsule will give you a different sound, but it's kind of that the 835 is designed to be that kind of. Okay, if I just want to hop it in a mix and go, that it'll cut through and give you a good sound and kind of be in between for everybody, right? It's not overly one way or another. It's just got that little bit of boost to cut you through the mix.
Gotcha. Thank you.
It's like any other instrument.
Right. Okay.
Right. Like you can go, if you go buy a guitar, if you're starting out and playing guitar, you can go pick up a guitar. It's got the whatever default strings it came with, D'Addario, whatever, $3.99 a set. But over time, you're going to change things on that instrument. And a microphone, people have this habit of buying a microphone when they're 18 years old. And, I have friends that bought an EV 767 or whatever when they were 18, and they're 45 and they're still using it. And I'm like, so that's a testament to that mic, sure. But if you've never tried a different microphone, especially if you're using in-ears, it's a whole new world. If you could get by with that $99 microphone, and I'm not knocking ours or anybody else's, but if you're a vocalist, invest in your craft. go check out different mics. You owe it to yourself. The amount of eye-opening moments you have at trade shows. We always have test stations where people very shyly go up and they push the button and they sing a little bit. But when you see them go from, really what you see is when they go from a dynamic to a condenser, you see their eyes pop, because if you got somebody who sings like Norah Jones and they're singing on a dynamic and then they hear themselves on a condenser, they're like,
wow.
I heard myself for the first time.
And again, that's what I always like to say. Like, if there was one microphone that was best for everyone, we would make one microphone, and that was it. Well, why would we make anything else if there was one that was just better than everything else, right? So every situation calls for something different in order to be the best. And so that's what we use. Like, honestly, like, I'm sure when you did, a lot of your tracking with the bands that you did, you had a ton of different vocal mics that you used, because every mix you wanted something different style, every singer sounded different. And so that's kind of in order to get the best sound, you need all the options, not just the one option that is best in one situation.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, when when I'm working with a singer for the first time, or even, many times, I'll put up 5 or 6 different microphones in front of them to see which one sounds the best on them. And, and it goes like that. Right. And then, I blindly listen, and I'll put up some obscure mic, and sometimes that'll even win. Be like, really? That you sounded that good on that mic? Wow. Okay.
And then the next day, you might pick something different on the same singer, because that day their voice sounds a little different, and all of a sudden a different mic sounded better, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, true. But I only do one shootout per session. You do a shootout.
We got to charge by the hour, and
exactly.
Keep trying different things,
So, the actual kind of Evolution Wireless Digital is a brand new kind of piece of technology. Can you explain why it's better than all of the other wireless out there right now?
Absolutely. And really the thing that's great about Evolution Wireless Digital is what we realized is that what made wireless microphones complicated were all of the workarounds that we had to put into the technology in order to kind of deal with the limitations, right? There were a lot of things that we had to add in order to say, well, you know what, we don't have enough dynamic range, so we got to add a sensitivity setting in order to lower that. When you do certain things, like all of this intermodulation pops up, and we need to avoid all of that. And so wireless microphones got complicated because we needed all these workarounds. And what we were able to do with Evolution Wireless Digital was advance the technology enough where we could eliminate most of these workarounds, or a lot of them anyway. And so the greatest thing about Evolution Wireless Digital is because of how advanced the tech is, we don't need a lot of the things in the system anymore that really made systems complicated. So, for example, sensitivity setting. We have 134 dB of dynamic range now on that mic. So we don't need to reduce the sensitivity of what's coming in anymore, because you're not going to be able to overload it. So it makes it really easy. In terms of frequency coordination, we don't need to do frequency coordination anymore, because the system doesn't produce intermodulation. And since it doesn't produce intermodulation, we don't have to avoid the intermodulation that it doesn't produce anymore. So we were able to make the system really easy and make it sound really, really good. It's really rivals the best sounding systems that we've ever made at any price point, and bring it to a price point that the masses can really afford. So that, in a nutshell, really is what makes Evolution Wireless Digital so much more advanced than anything else. It's so easy to use because of how advanced it is.
Okay, great. That's really awesome. So, on podcasts and stuff, I was just wondering about lavalier mics, right? So, because this in my picture is like, I don't know, but like a lot of podcasters have their headphones on and they're talking into their mic like this, and that's all you see on their camera, right? I like to have it a little bit, maybe like that a little bit, just so it looks. I don't know. I've just been making shit up as I go along. Anyway, my question is,
there's two of us.
My question is, do you guys make any lavalier mics that can just good for the podcasting thing to fit on your shirt or wherever?
Yeah, of course we do. It's interesting because before we had this solution, which makes things very, very easy, and I'll tell you about it in a second. You're constantly struggling with people to to make them aware of something. I would say educate, but it's not even that they're necessarily hunting for the solution. But, you can take almost any microphone, literally almost any microphone you have, and you could get it to work with your mobile phone, right? If you have the right gazintas, gazautas, adapters, whatever, you can hook it up. It's a matter of knowing, how do I convert this signal to get it into that box? And, for a lot of people, they don't have the time, the inclination, or they just don't want to know how to do that. So about a year and a half ago, Sennheiser said, okay, we just need something for a very simple solution. Now, this was pre-pandemic. So, of course, everyone wasn't home. Teachers weren't home. Students weren't home. But we came out with a very cost-effective, if you're in the US, this is a $59 solution, which is a USB-C lavalier microphone with a 6.5-foot cable. So who's that perfect for? Now, Toby, you mentioned podcasters. Sometimes they kind of want that voice of God. They want that big, loud sound.
The closeness,
loud, but the low end of the voice.
Right.
The closeness you get from proximity. But there's plenty of people that don't want that. Let's say you're doing a tutorial, or you're teaching a class, or whatever. This makes it real easy. It's discreet. You clip it on. You don't have anything in front of you. Your hand's free. No stand. Goes right into the computer if you've got a USB-C connection. And if you don't have a USB-C connection, go visit B&H or Amazon or whomever. You can get a USB-A to USB-C adapter and plug it into anything. And that, it doesn't really get any easier than that. So there's no excuse for bad audio. You can just plug this in and it's recognized as a digital connection, and away you go. Super easy. And for $59, you can't really go wrong.
So what would you say is your definition of immersive audio?
I guess it depends on your experience, right? So like immersive audio, for me, it's like if you can go back and think about some of those like eye-opening moments where you experienced something that kind of made you pause, right? So the first time I heard anything that was mixed, captured with our Ambeo microphone and mixed into an immersive setup, I swore I was listening to speakers. We had a demo room, is actually at a trade event, and we had it was a Neumann speaker setup, and I think it was like a 9.1 or 9.2 setup, and they played back audio, and we were checking out the Ambeo soundbar, which is a relatively new product, and when they played it back, I swore that those speakers were on, and I actually put my ear right up to the speaker, stood on a chair, and was listening, going, okay, I hear it, but I don't hear that speaker. And that experience, being able to take something that's a much more complicated setup, like a cinema or something of that nature, and then to distill it down into something like the soundbar and to use DSP algorithms to give you that immersive experience, is eye-opening and changes the game entirely for you. And that really depends on how you're recording something, right? Because the idea with immersive audio, or ambisonics at least, is to be able to take something and make it one channel, 2, 6, 9, 22. What do you want to do with this? How crazy do you want to get? And it all collapses down to mono because of the way it was recorded.
Yeah, and I can give you like a little bit more of from an engineering point of view, like what is immersive audio. And the way that I like to look at it really is kind of looking through the iterations of, what we have done in the past, right? So you have your mono audio, which was, done a long, long time ago. Then we upgraded that to stereo audio, where we have your 2 channels and you're listening in stereo. And then the next iteration was your surround sound, right? But everything in the surround sound was all in the same plane as your ears. So immersive audio is really the next level beyond surround sound. And it's when we add in 3 dimensions the audio, right? And that can be anywhere. So most common is going to be adding height to that, where you maybe have height channels or virtualization of height. But in reality, it's just anything beyond the listening plane. That is what immersive audio is, from a engineering point of view. And there's a lot of different ways of doing that. Obviously, the Ambeo soundbar does an amazing job of using the room to bounce sound waves around to give you those other planes of listening, not just in your same plane. But you can also do that with discrete speakers. You can do that with virtualization from stereo. You can do that, with ambisonics. There's a lot of ways to do it. And it's a really big category. That's the thing you have to remember is once it goes beyond the listening plane, it's immersive audio, regardless of what we're doing beyond the listening plane, the standard listening plane.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Interesting. So, Ambeo is kind of it sounds like it's just a big ambient type of listening environment, right? Is that kind of what I'm
Ambeo?
What is Ambeo?
Ambeo is not a technology. Ambeo for us isn't actually a technology. It's more towards what Greg was talking about. It's this concept of immersion and kind of pushing the limits of what people experience with audio.
Okay.
Ambeo, you'll see that name on a variety of our products, and whenever you see Ambeo, you can think 3D listening, immersive, those kinds of things. And it's interesting because you had mentioned one of the first the binaural recording devices that we made, which was lovingly referred to as Fritz. Right. And that's Fritz being our founder. Sure. That technology still lives on today with a Neumann version. So you have the Neumann KU100, which is a binaural head. And we've had other products that kind of distill that concept of binaural recording to give you the most lifelike listening experience. And we had a product for a few years named the Ambeo Smart Headset.
Okay. And
that was in partnership with Apogee. So it had Apogee PCBs in it, and we were using their preamp technology. And of course their amazing A to D. And we had headphones that had microphones built into it. And if you were a kid in the 90s and you went to concerts and you always wanted a bootleg, like if I had this, I probably would have never got a job. I would have been somewhere in Europe or Asia following a band around for the rest of my life. But it's that kind of, when you play back something that was recorded with that, it's so funny to watch because a binaural recording produces that, what?
Right.
Like, and when you do the demo, you'll whisper something in somebody's ear and talk to them and then play it back. And when you play it back, they'll answer you and you're not talking to them anymore. So it's that idea of being in the moment. Right. It links to VR, it links to ambisonics. And really, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, our home stereos will be totally different. We'll consume content in a totally different way.
Exactly.
It won't just be a left and a right speaker. It'll be, who knows what it'll be, but I hope it has a Sennheiser logo.
And the thing that's really cool about binaural in general is it's really a technology that's been around for a really long time. It's been around since the early 70s. That MKE 2002 is actually a couple of microphones that went in a headset. And what it's doing is it's really utilizing the fact that you have two ears, so you would assume that you hear in stereo, but you don't, right? You can actually tell if something's in front of you, if something's behind you, if something's above you. And the question is well, how can you do that if you only have two ears, right? If you listen to stereo speakers, you can't tell if something's above or below or behind, right? It's only, you have one plane. And really what's happened is your brain has learned that as the sound waves bounce off your face or your head or the back of your head, it adds to the sound. And then you've kind of learned, okay, if it sounds this way, it must be coming from the front. If it sounds this other way, then that must be coming from the back, right? And so what we were able to do, and with ambisonics is kind of, or binaural, is actually kind of replicate a generic version of what we call those head-related transfer functions in order to take that single source and put it into the 3D plane around you and kind of trick your brain into thinking that object is either in front of you or behind you or above you by adding those. So it's actually pretty cool, and it's been around for a very, very long time.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
The real trick to it, though, is that you have to you can't have your environment influence the environment that we're creating with that binaural reference, right? So you really need to be isolated inside of a pair of headphones. And it's only in the last so many years that the vast majority of people now have headphones, right? Before it was always Sennheiser lovers and audiophiles and like high-end guys would have headphones, but like, your cousin and your grandma did not have a pair of headphones. All of a sudden today, everybody has a pair of headphones. And so now you can, get this to the masses, where before it was only something niche.
Awesome. I feel you've just answered my next question. I was going to ask you about the concept of actually kind of 3D sound, and about you being on the forefront of like kind of innovation since 1945. But I just feel you've kind of answered that question for me with your last one.
Well, I can jump in with a little something.
Well,
I used to mix a lot of surround sound audio, and at the I had a company called MixLab, and it was just a whole different experience to listen with something that I had mixed with MixLab versus what I had mixed, in a stereo one-dimensional field. And I actually did, through phase and things, some phase boxes that I hooked up, get to experience things that I could make fly over my head and come from underneath the desk. And obviously I can go to the left and to the right and, to the back and to the front, or to the front and to the back, however you want to look at it, infinitesimally. It could just keep going with delays and whatnot back there. But, I guess the practical application of Ambeo is, it sounds like it's everything that is coming up in, the future of audio in the world, right? So it's
absolutely.
I'm very excited for you guys, and I really, really want to. Do you have things like? Do they have things that I can mix in Ambeo? And is it something that, like the Dolby people with their Atmos thing, is it comparative to that, or is it kind of go hand in hand with that, or like how are we going to see it come out and be usable to the consumer?
The one thing to remember is that our Ambeo brand is really that. It's a brand, and any device that we build that lends itself to 3D or immersive audio will have that Ambeo moniker on it. So we have a soundbar, which is an immersive audio reproduction system that has an Ambeo logo on it. We have a VR microphone that is for recording ambisonics that has an Ambeo logo on it. We're also working on some really cool stuff under the Ambeo logo in terms of car audio. So we have a division of the company that's actually doing some really cool things with car audio, where we're talking about getting a more immersive, 3D experience inside the car, and they're actually doing it without speakers, which is really, really cool technology.
That's great.
And we have the Dear VR elements of our business as well. There's a lot of free plugins available on our website. If it's something you're dabbling in or something you want to learn more about, as Greg had said, it is kind of a vast topic, but we do a pretty decent job on our website of explaining all the different variables that we have available. And there's an Ambeo section of the site. So I would encourage people, if you'd like to learn more, there's a wealth of knowledge.
And the one thing to keep in mind is the most common name that you'll see in immersive audio is going to be that Dolby Atmos. And Ambeo is not a competitor to Dolby Atmos. Dolby Atmos is a format that you can, use. And so like the soundbar is an Ambeo soundbar that plays back Dolby Atmos immersive content. You can use VR mic or many of our other microphones to create Dolby Atmos content, right? So they are really the format king, and we don't Ambeo is not a competitor for that. Ambeo is something that is a whole brand of things that you can use to create content to work with.
So then, fellas, after 3D sound and basically after Ambeo, well, where else is there actually for you to go as a company?
After Ambeo could be many years from now. And the reason we say that is Sennheiser kind of prides itself in being a leader in the technologies that we kind of hitch our cart to, and Ambeo is out before a lot of people have kind of wrapped their arms around what it is and how they can use it, and it's not mainstream yet. And I don't think that recording format will be mainstream for at least another 5 or 10 years. So what's next after that? I'm sure there's a notebook somewhere in Germany and someone's got a whole lot of notes scribbled in it. We never have a shortage of ideas. Like Greg said, we're
Actually, kind of lots of equations.
we're an
written down
engineering
somewhere.
company, so there's always somebody who's got something on a napkin that is like gonna go poof when you
Except
read it.
it's in German, so we won't be
Right,
able to
right.
read it.
Yeah, I bet. There's actually like sort of a notebook somewhere that's actually like kind of full of equations and kind of scribbles. And actually one day you're going to see it and just go, yeah, that makes total sense.
Someday. Yeah, and the marketing and sales guys, sometimes we don't understand, and then they say, "Oh, it sounds good though." But
Right. Was there any technology that you wouldn't get involved with, or or wish you had, or any regrets to something that you might have missed, or not?
I think it's. I wouldn't say it's a miss, and I wouldn't say it's something that we did wrong, but
Mhm.
many years ago, years and years and years ago, we had we kind of were pushing the USB element, right? So USB mics, and
Yeah.
for a long while, we had questions about, well, who's going to use USB mics?
Right.
Because Sennheiser, for the vast majority of the time we've been a company, has served professionals. It wasn't really until 1998 that we started
Okay.
to serve the music industry.
Right.
Right. So in 1998, Evolution wired microphones came out, the 835 came out, and then 5 years
Right.
later, the 900 series and Evolution Wireless G1 came out in 1999. And that was kind of the first time when we were serving the music industry area. And when USB microphones came along, we were a little slower to adopt that than I would have liked us to have been. And,
Right.
I've
Mhm.
been with the company 18 years, so I've kind of watched that progression happen. We did make a wonderful USB microphone with Apogee, which was called the MK4 Digital. But as Greg
That was
said, we
good.
like to do things kind of at the top end. So when you have
Right.
a $400 USB microphone competing against a $100 USB microphone, not everybody's going to see the exact reason why, but the professionals did. So.
Yeah.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like having engineering first isn't always the best possible
Right.
scenario in the market. So sometimes if we have a tendency to make things that are, unobtainium, right? They're the best thing ever, and they're so expensive that the market can't afford them. So a good example is the Digital 9000. It's one of the best, even to this date, it's one of the best wireless microphone systems ever built. The technology is still something that we're pulling from. And there is no system on the market before or after that was ever able to do fully uncompressed wireless, fully uncompressed digital audio
Oh, wow,
across.
okay.
The problem with that system was it had to be bought in 8-channel packs, and it was close to $10,000 a channel. So if you wanted that system, you had to spend $80,000 to $100,000 just to enter.
Right.
And unfortunately, the market wasn't ready for that. And so,
Yeah,
there
sure.
are some of those systems out there in some really high-end places, but if you weren't the top of the top, you couldn't afford the system. So having the best possible technology isn't always the best solution for the market.
Agreed.
Yep. That unwavering commitment really to making the best product. There's not a product that Sennheiser makes that we say, sorry, it's good enough to do that. Everything has a purpose. Everything at its price point. We want to be the best at every price point that we have.
Yeah, totally.
But, oh, go ahead, Greg. I'm sorry.
And that's the thing. What I love about working for Sennheiser is that, and it's sometimes a double-edged sword, is that they won't compromise.
Good.
On certain things. They just won't compromise. If they listen to something, our engineers, and say, this doesn't sound good, then it doesn't matter if the market would love it or we could sell 1 million of them. It's not Sennheiser quality, so we're not going to design it, right? And so sometimes some of our competition designs something that's not good sounding, but good enough and very inexpensive, and they sell 1 million of them, and we don't do that because they just don't want to put their name on something that they don't think that sounds good, and I love that. So
I think it's a fair call, to be honest. I mean, you've actually, you've actually got like kind of a sort of almost sort of 80-year history of basically making high-end sort of quality products, it would be surely like sort of commercial suicide to actually like sort of bring something out that was okay.
Yeah.
We try to avoid that.
Because that's actually not what people expect from you. Actually, sort of people are actually buying your products because they actually want the best.
Right, exactly. And you guys you acquired Neumann, right?
Yep.
And they're one of my favorite manufacturers of pro gear ever since I can remember. And since Sennheiser acquired Neumann, are you guys still making the big classic diaphragm tube mics and that kind of stuff?
Yeah. And
good.
watch this space. I guess I can give you for a little preview.
Okay.
You know, the really
nice.
interesting thing about the acquisition of Neumann was that happened in 1991, if memory serves correct.
It'll be 30 years this year.
Wow.
So the amount of people that come up to us at trade shows that look up at the logos and go, how come you guys are together?
Right.
Or, you know, I didn't know Neumann owned Sennheiser. You know, you get those kinds of questions.
Sure,
Like,
sure.
No. And, you know, that's a testament to the commitment that Sennheiser had to keeping the brand promise that is Neumann. You know,
Right.
As Greg had mentioned over and over again with Sennheiser, when you buy these products, you know, you're buying them for a lifetime. And we don't skimp. We try not to change things that are important. We're not going to change the body from you know, this metal to a really cheap metal so that we can save a couple bucks.
Right.
We don't care about that.
Good.
And we'll charge you for it. You know, to be fair,
Right.
when you buy this product, you're buying quality. Neumann does still manufacture tube microphones. In fact, I think it was a year and a half ago, we started reissuing the U67 tube.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Which we can't keep them in stock. You know, you would think a $7,000 microphone, you would eventually kind of taper off, but people want it, and they
sure,
you know, they keep selling. We still make
It's actually the
okay.
end of 2018 that the U67 was re-released. Unfortunately, the last year and a half has kind of been blank in all of our minds. So
right.
Kind of forgetting.
That's probably what it is. But it was actually the reissued at the end of 2018.
That's awesome.
So you have the U67, the M147, the M149.
Okay.
And I can't remember if the M150 is going away or not. Greg, I couldn't remember. It's M150 was
I don't think so.
It's very specialized Omni. I could be. I'm sorry. It was the TLM50 that got discontinued.
Oh, okay,
So
gotcha.
Mixed up my nomenclature.
Yeah.
So yeah, we
150
still
is
make
still-
tube mics, and we might make some more.
Excellent. I'll be looking forward to testing them out for sure.
So, moving forward, besides the Evolution wireless technology and Ambeo, what big things can actually you guys predict that are going to happen over the next few years?
Wow. The crickets because you don't want to
That's a big
tell
question.
us, or
Or
Well,
is it secrets?
There's
secret? Shh, don't tell anybody.
there's a whole lot of potential right around the corner, right? So I think
Okay.
the world has learned valuable lessons in the last 18 months. You know,
Yes, totally.
and those have opened doors that were previously closed. You know, all of us that had day jobs,
Right.
that were going to offices, if you were fortunate enough to keep your job and be able to work from home, that catapulted a whole new market.
Sure.
You know, and new thought processes and new
That's right.
product ideas and you know, so in different parts of our business, we're not trying to capitalize on those issues, but we're trying to think, what does that mean for an end user? How do we make their life better? What can we do so that their day is more enjoyable? And then on the flip side of that, you're thinking, okay, when we get out of this pandemic area, what's going to happen? And the world hopefully will come back to life, and live touring is back, and
Right.
people are excited and buy new gear and new technologies happen. But usually what ends up happening that forces change, at least where the majority of our business lives, is government regulation and changes,
Right.
unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we were to look at new technologies down the road, what would happen? I know that Sennheiser and our largest competitors are committed to finding ways to maximize channel counts. You don't want less wireless, you want more wireless.
Right, sure.
You want things to be easier. You want better sound quality. So I would imagine, at least from my side of from where I'm sitting, we would continue to push the envelope when it comes to transmission technologies and wireless products, because that is really the bread and butter for Sennheiser. Sennheiser is a wireless company.
Gotcha. Okay.
And to elaborate on that a little bit, currently the regulation from the government is that a wireless microphone can only fill 200 kilohertz of spectrum. And that is the law, right? That's what it is. You can't sell one that does more.
Right. Okay.
And so obviously we and our competitors are working on, getting the government to change that and say, you know what? Okay, that's outdated. We can do more. And then once we can do that, the doors open up to a lot more versatility, to two-way communication, to being variable. So today my system can do, a ton of channels at lower quality. And tomorrow I need a few channels at really high quality.
Okay.
Right. And so it's going to be a lot more versatility, a lot more that you can do once we kind of get rid of that legal limitation of having to stick within that very, very small piece of spectrum for each microphone.
Gotcha. Okay. So what are your biggest selling products that musicians can buy?
Well, there's a few things. If you're going to have music as a hobby, if it's going to be your meditation, if it's going to be where you go to relax and enjoy, there's a few things that every musician needs to have. And some of those fit nicely in our top selling categories. Right. One of the best selling products that we have is our HD280 Pro headphone.
Okay.
That's a $99 wired headphone. It's a workhorse. It can take a beating. Again, you're going to have it for a long time. Flat frequency response, good isolation. So if you're a musician, whether you live in an apartment or you're tracking in a studio, or you just want something when you're outside, buying an appropriate proper headphone is a really good place to start. And $99 seems to be like this is great quality, and you get a lot for what you're paying. Consequently, these in-ears that I'm using are also $99, and these are the IE100s. Okay. So depending on what you want to do for a headphone,
right.
That would be probably two of the best selling products there. And then on the wired microphone front, by far the best selling microphone we have, wired microphone, is the E835. That is a $99 vocal microphone. Looks like so.
Excellent.
So if you were and again, it's pandemic related, but I gotta throw this out there. Bring your own microphone to a venue.
Absolutely.
Don't
totally.
I've gone to enough shows where I've watched this. Actually, AT had a really funny commercial a couple years ago where I know their marketing guy, so I can say they did good on this. Where it was kind of like a rock band, a grungy guy kind of singing. He's clapping, and he went to clap, and he put the microphone underneath his armpit, and was clapping. And then they flipped over the next day to a very pretty singer songwriter, and she stepped up to the microphone, and they got real close and showed her lips touching the mic and just said, buy your own mic. And I think all microphone manufacturers want that,
right.
We want people to be safe, buy your own, if not for sanitary reasons, for consistency purposes.
Right.
If you played a gig and you used a different guitar every night, you know what you would sound like?
Something different every night.
Something different every night.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Well, this goes back to what we were talking about before, right? Everybody sounds different. So if you, as a singer or an artist, find a microphone that matches you perfectly, then you should bring that with you wherever you go, right? Like that's kind of the point. And while we, would love it to be a Sennheiser microphone, like every microphone sounds different and everybody sounds different. So we make a lot of really great options, but there are other ones out there too. And so it's really about, trying stuff and finding what you like and what matches you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So then in a similar vein, what are your best-selling products that non-professional people buy? So actually like sort of your average like sort of consumer.
Oh, I think I kind of I gave you kind of like the MI answer, the hobbyist, music hobbyist.
Okay.
So on the consumer side, I think actually that the headphones could actually hold true as well. You know, HD280 Pros are used by a plethora of people, from consumers to professionals and everywhere in between. Greg, did you have any? Is there anything that jumps out at you for a consumer-based product? Maybe like the MK400, you know, as an example, that could be a.
Well, so we also do a whole category of audio for video
Right.
products, which at this point is very consumer driven, right? Like everybody's, you know, got their phone with a camera in it. Everybody's everybody's a photographer.
Everybody's a photographer now.
Everybody's doing video. I know that the camera market itself is much bigger than it used to be, thanks to everybody having a camera and taking pictures and going, I want a better camera. And we do a whole line of microphones that are designed for audio for video, right?
Okay.
So we have our brand new MKE 200, which came out last year, which is again $99 and is great to add on to any camera. We have an MKE 400, which is actually a small shotgun mic that's great for that. It's actually what I'm using right now. It's what you're hearing me on, using that USB-C cable that Rob talked about earlier. And so we have a whole line of audio for video stuff that is really great for the consumer market, because you know, everybody's using video, taking, you know, photos, and adding good audio to video makes a gigantic difference. I know most people don't think about this first, and they always think, you know, okay, the video, I want to spend a lot of money on a camera. But if there's actually videos online you can watch about this, if you have video that is really fuzzy, but the audio is crystal clear, you can watch it all day long. If you have video that's crystal clear, but the audio is terrible, 30, 40 seconds in, you're done, and you don't want to watch it anymore, and you want to shut it off, right?
Yeah.
So there's a ton of examples of that online where you can see that, and it's amazing. You're watching this video and it's fuzzy, and you're like, yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter. And then the next video is crystal clear, and all of a sudden you're like, I can't turn it off, turn it off.
It's
and
true.
It's really pretty amazing how good audio enhances that video experience more than the video itself.
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
And
Go ahead, Rob.
You know, the other interesting thing about the audio for video topic is it starts pulling people in to our world. So everybody that's on this podcast right now, we have, you know, an affinity for live sound, for recording, for engineering, for music. Now there's a whole nother world of people that are becoming content creators that are learning bits and pieces and really starting to understand why microphone selection matters. And they go through that upgrade path, some of them painfully slow, trying to understand, you know, how do I get things to be better? But you see all these different hobbies that are now becoming interested in audio products, whether it's headphones or microphones for content creation. So, you know, you've got someone who's doing makeup tutorials, they need a microphone. You got somebody who's a woodworker, need a microphone. Got somebody who loves RC cars, needs a microphone. You know, you got a teacher, they need a microphone. It's so rampant and prevalent that what Sennheiser has focused on is trying to find the easiest way to provide the best possible audio experience for all of these people. And that kind of goes back to that USB-C lav mic, where it's like, how do we make something that's so simple? And then you can start there and then go buy shotgun microphones and then buy stereo microphones and then, you know,
and
upgrade.
I think that's one thing that we've kind of really started coming into recently is, you know, being simple and easy to use does not mean cheap quality, right? Like that is something that seems to kind of go hand in hand. It's like, oh, if it's easy, then it must not be that good. And if it's very complicated, then it must be better, right? And the reality is those two things are not exclusive, right? You can have really high quality that's also really easy to use. And that is really something that I've watched Sennheiser really start to do in the last few years with the Evolution Wireless Digital, with the new audio for video microphones. The quality is there, but now it's easy to use. And a lot of times that's actually because the technology is better. And so we were able to make it easier, right? You're able to just take a shotgun microphone with a USB cable on it and boom, plug it in and you're off and going. And years ago that technology just wasn't there.
Right, exactly.
Didn't exist.
So I noticed there's like, you know, different kinds of headphones and earbuds and all that kind of stuff, and over the ear headphones and all that kind of good stuff. I have a sound healing company and a tech company, and I'm looking for some wireless earbuds. that you can sleep in, right? So do you guys have anything like that?
So it's not an area that Sennheiser specializes in. You know, our products. I think if you're going to sleep in a headphone, there's probably a whole lot of mechanics that would have to go into it. So you'd have to probably have something that's a little more silicone and pliable, so that you're comfortable laying on a pillow. That's not to say people don't sleep in Sennheiser headphones. I'm sure they do on subways around the world. But you know, something for that specific of an application, it's not something that I can't think of a headphone off the top of my head that I would say, hey, this is going to be uber comfortable and you're going to be perfect with this. So I would say that there's an opportunity there for someone, maybe for you.
Well, actually, in like kind of a similar vein, do you basically have like kind of a headset or kind of a headphone microphone combo you would actually recommend to me for actually doing this podcast?
Greg, you want? Or
yeah, sure. So we actually have a whole line of what we call the HMD series, right? And so really what it is one of our HD headphones, whether it's the HD 280s or HD 300s. And then we have some higher end ones as well with a headset that comes around. So we have condenser versions and dynamic versions. So it's a HMD 300 is going to be your, I don't want to say entry level because it's definitely a high end headphone and microphone setup, but it is the least expensive of that family that we have there. And then we also have some higher end ones, and you'll actually see those. They're basically industry standard for sports broadcast when you talk about the HMD 26 or 27 that we have. And most of those are on ear, really high quality, either condensers or dynamics, depending on, again, what you're looking for. And we have a whole line of those, and they're really for in our broadcast series. So the HMD series, we have a whole line for.
So Gareth, the product that you're using right now looks like a telecommunications headset. Right. So USB style, lightweight, probably sub $100. This is a consumer or call center office kind of product.
Right. Yeah.
And Sennheiser did have a partnership some years ago, and we had a brand that was Sennheiser Communications that has since spun off and is now known as EPOS.
Yeah.
So if you were looking for a USB lightweight kind of office type product, EPOS would be a great place to look. And they compete with the likes of Jabra and Netcom and these kinds of things. Plantronics and those. Now, what Greg was talking about with the HMD series, if you are plugging into, you're not plugging in USB, you're plugging into a sound card and you want broadcast fidelity and you want, that broadcast, from the football match, you're looking for that kind of sound, you're going to need a different microphone than what's on that.
Yeah, Gareth, you need a big guy headset.
You need one of the big guy headsets. And that's where you would come to us. Now, you sound good. You sound good, but you could sound better.
I could sound better.
And, depending, but again, as Greg said, it's a larger headset. What you're wearing is comfort. You probably wear it all day and not feel it.
Yeah. It's so cheap and convenient, really. So for people out there who might not be overly familiar with your company or your product, what specifically would you actually want them to know?
Greg, let's we can bounce off. I'm sure there's something you'd like them to know, and there's something I would as well.
Sure. I mean, we've already talked about this a little bit, and it's really the fact that, when you're buying a Sennheiser product, that you're getting a certain level of quality, right? There's no product in the Sennheiser line that cuts corners and we said, hey, this doesn't sound that good and it's not that great, but we it's the cheapest on the market. That's not the Sennheiser way. So that if you're buying a Sennheiser product, you're getting a high quality, top quality, designed by engineers and not a marketing team. And that's really what reason that I wanted to work for Sennheiser in the first place, and the reason that I love my job is because everybody around me just wants the best possible sound. They want high quality devices, high quality product, and then afterwards, hopefully, we can sell it so we can design some more of these awesome products. So that's really one thing that I love to talk about is that you're never going to buy a Sennheiser product and say this is not super high quality.
Right. Okay. That's good.
And to parlay off of what Greg said, I think for my adult life, I've worked at Sennheiser. I'm very, very fortunate to always have wonderful people around me that I wanted to stick around. I wanted to stay. I wanted to see what was next.
Yeah.
And because of that, I've been able to see when you as a customer, whether you're a broadcast customer, end user, or a musician hobbyist, when you purchase a Sennheiser product, you're buying something for much longer term. Mm-hmm. These aren't throwaway tools. Mm-hmm. These are things that I would laugh because I would go into our service department, and we have a colleague named Dave Kopp, and if you send a Sennheiser MKH416, it's going to Dave Kopp. It's been going to Dave Kopp for the last 20 years. He's the guy that fixes this in the US. Yeah. And, I'd go back there every once in a while, and you'd see an MKH416 that was kind of like bent, like into a V shape.
Okay.
And you look at it and you go, so can we fix that? And he'll say, well, we can replace the housing. We're going to take the PCB out. We're going to check it, realign it, all that stuff.
Right.
But you look at that housing, and it's not black anymore. It's brass. Yeah. And the reason it's brass is because NEP or NBC or whoever sent it in because a golfer smacked it when they got upset that they missed their putt. By the way, that's when you get from the ball. Right. That's usually because there's a shotgun mic right near. But occasionally people hit them. But that company has had that microphone so long that the plating on the outside it still works fine, except for it's crushed. But the plating has come off. And, that's the thing when it comes to buying good tools. And, I don't think of microphones as anything more than a tool.
Right. Me too.
And if you're going to do this, if you're going to enjoy it, buy a tool that lasts. Yeah. And if you don't like it, you can sell it.
Yep.
So that's one of the things that I've always felt very fortunate about is that pride that when you hand somebody a Sennheiser business card and you say, I work for Sennheiser, it's that family vibe. It's that just excitement that you're working for a company that cares,
Right.
And I'll add actually a cool story that when I first went to Germany and saw the factory, this was something that really stuck with me. It's really like that expertise and the quality that is just so meticulous. And so I'll give you an example. We have a product called an HE1, which is this really expensive, really high-end headphone designed for, the super enthusiast who has an unlimited amount of money. And really what was the thought process behind this headphone was, we want to make the best pair of headphones. It doesn't matter how much it's going to cost. Don't worry about the price of components. And we had somebody who designed this, right? Now we sell these headphones for
$60,000.
$60-something thousand. There is one person who is qualified to make these headphones. So there is a small room it's not that small, but there's a room inside the factory, and you can see his whole workspace that he's there. If he takes a vacation and somebody orders one, we can't make one that week.
Right. Okay.
Right. There's I want one right away. Well, the guy's on vacation, and there's one guy in the world who can design or can build that because of the expertise that is needed. Right. And that's the thing. If this person leaves the company, or retires, that product will go away, and they may say, we want another one, and they'll have to design something else and have somebody else do that. So that's is one thing. They will not compromise on any of this stuff. And that goes for Sennheiser. That goes for Neumann. I mean, how many times have you seen a Neumann product that, people love and they've wanted forever and they don't make it anymore? Right. And you turn around and say, well, how come you don't make this microphone anymore? It's like, well, the components that existed don't exist anymore, and we're not going to compromise on it.
Right.
You don't want to buy a U47 that we just built and said, it's kind of the same. We use cheaper parts, and we found this other thing. And no, a U47 is a U47.
Good.
And if we can make it again, we will do that.
Right.
But if we can't, then we won't, right? So the greatest thing about that U67 that came out in 2018, they're identical to the originals. Other than the fact that electricity hasn't been running through them for 50 years yet, they're identical.
Right.
And you can actually see, we have a chart of a U67 from, I think it was 1967. And then we have one that we built in 2018.
Okay.
And they literally qualify as matched pairs.
Oh, wow.
And they go by component by component. They show you. It's actually on the inside of the one of the marketing brochures. It shows you everything that was in the original and everything that's in this one.
And the frequency response was identical. Like you could have called them a matched pair. And they were built 50 years apart.
That's great.
That's incredible.
And So where can people find Sennheiser and all of Sennheiser's awesome products?
First and foremost, Sennheiser can be found online. So we have a wonderful resource with our website.
Okay.
And if you're looking for something very specific that might not be an everyday tool, always consult our website. That's where you're going to find information on some of the more specialized things that we talked about today, the Ambeo VR mic and things of that nature. But if you're in the US, from a retail standpoint, one of the largest retail store chains, of course, you can go to Guitar Center, you can go to Sam Ash. You can also shop with B&H, Sweetwater, Full Compass, pretty much all of the online retailers. If you're looking for a Sennheiser product, not only do they stock those Sennheiser products, but they are trained, oftentimes by Greg, to be experts in those products in that field. And each of those resellers that I listed have excellent resources of their own on their website, whether you're chatting with them online or calling into their contact centers or visiting them in store. So those are just a few places that you can find Sennheiser product. And if you can't find what you're looking for, there's an 800 number right on our website, 1877 Sennheiser, and you can always reach out to us. And you never know, it might be me that picks up the phone.
That would be awesome.
That would be very awesome.
We wear a lot of hats, so you might find your way to the Greg or I, depending on the question.
That would be great. I'll ask a very technical question. That way, I'll get to you.
Maybe
we answer all of them. It doesn't have to be technical. It could be, does this come in black or nickel?
Okay,
we know
sounds
those
perfect.
two.
I like it in copper better.
Well, you buy it for 40, 50 years. You can get that brass.
That's true. Okay, I'll take it. Well, it's been a very, very informative and very fun episode. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Rob. And thank you, Greg.
Thank you
for taking the time to be part of this episode of My Right Stuff. Thank you to our sponsor, Tomes, which is a natural sleep and sound healing portal, helping people globally to get to sleep faster and stay asleep longer. You can find this piece of gold at www.tomes.com. That's www.taumhoms.com. And most of all, a big thank you to all of you who stream and download and watch and support My Right Stuff. And please keep spreading the word. I want to thank my distinguished co-host, Mr. Gareth Dyton, and our whole My Right staff crew for making this podcast possible every week.
Well, Toby, it has to be said that we both enjoy listening to music and making ourselves heard. So this has been a bit of a perfect gig for us tonight.
Well, thank you guys again. Rob?
Thank you. Hope to see you sometime, not across the screen.
That's right. In person should be next.
I hope so.
Absolutely. Well, this has been another exciting episode of My Right Stuff. Be sure to tune in next week and every week for yet another adventurous episode. I'm your host, Lord Toby Wright. And remember to listen loud, play hard, and keep reaching for your dreams.
No star, you lovely people. Take care.
Thank you for watching My Right Stuff. This episode was brought to you by Tones, a natural sleep and sound healing portal available globally at www.tones.com. That's www.taumhoms.com.